Welcome to Bears Talk Live with Greg Gabriel, where he brings over 30 years of scouting experience to Swift Sports and the best fans in the business. Hit the like button and hype up this video to support the channel, and let's talk Bears football. Greg, what is going on, my man? It has been an eventful week. We have the Senior Bowl going on. Trade rumors are already getting started. We have free agency coming up. It's right around the corner. That's the benefit of playing a little bit longer in the season. And of course, the big news we'll get to in just a few moments as well, the Ian Cunningham to the Falcons news. But Greg, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing good. Are you still down in Mobile?
No. I'm watching. I am still digging through the practice footage though, because I also have the film for it. Um, Lots to still go over. I do have a lot of takeaways. If did you do any Senior Bowl work this week? Because I did want to talk to you about some of my standout guys.
I watched what was on TV, and I did not watch anything yesterday yet.
Okay.
So I'll get to that. And then there's going to be stuff I can find. I want to get the tape, which I don't have. I know I can get it.
Okay.
I'm trying to. It's not in the tape. I got PFF Ultimate from the East West.
Okay.
It's not in there. I got to find out if it's going to be in there, because like every game is in there, but every college game played this season is in there that I have.
Wow.
But I don't have the Senior Bowl in there. At least I couldn't find it. I got to call Gelco and find out if it's in there.
Okay. I get it from a different way. I will say there is some breaking news right now from Ian Rappaport. The Vikings just fired their GM.
Yeah, I wonder what happened with that. I mean, that just the whole timing of it is really weird. And then there's another guy in the office who's going to be on, take over on an interim basis, Brzezinski, who's been there for a while through the draft, and then they'll go through the process of hiring a new GM. But something happened. There had to be a disagreement about something. Maybe it was something that happened down in Mobile. I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah,
the timing of it is really weird.
I thought they had just extended him recently or last season, and that one was wild to me. So that one just caught me off guard right when we were getting started. The Vikings have fired their GM. A lot of news going on right now around the NFL. But, I mean, the biggest thing right now, we'll go ahead and get into it. We'll probably have to repeat it because people are still joining in the show. But the Ian Cunningham to the Falcons news. And I'll start off by telling you what I researched about this. I went out and I read the NFL rule book. I looked up the article that was amended and added when they added the comp picks. And then I listened to the entire press conference from Matt Ryan and Arthur Blank themselves, where Matt Ryan said this GM role is going to be exactly the same as it was before, and just like every other GM job in the league. Greg, I know you know a little bit more than I do about this, so I'm going to ask you your thoughts and let you share, because I know you've also, I don't know if you want to tell people about the text you were sending out, but I know you were sending some text behind the scenes as well. Greg, what do you know about the comp picks from Ian Cunningham?
Okay, it's not a dead issue from what I understand. A lot of people are saying, well, he's not the primary football executive, so they're not getting the comp picks. Not true. And here's why. What determines that is what's in the contract. The contract wasn't signed, and it might not even be signed. It might be agreed to, but not signed. But wasn't negotiated until sometime late yesterday when they announced it, that he was going to be the GM. I don't know who his agent is, but it's what's in the contract that'll determine if there are any comp picks given. And I can say this because I've seen this happen before. They hired Matt first, and Matt was given that role of primary football executive, which is a vague role. And part of that was because, he was the guy hiring the football coach.
Yep.
Okay, so, and I'm sure he had control of the roster as part of that. That doesn't mean he has it today. Okay. And that's where I mean, where it depends what's in the contract. And in the course of negotiations with Ian and Ian's representative, they could, again, I'm just putting hypotheticals there, could have said, hey, if you want us, we want to be here, but I got to have control of the roster. Because that's really what makes a GM a GM.
And I believe Arthur Blank said something along the same lines. They didn't want to diminish the GM role because they wanted to attract the best possible candidate,
Right,
and
right.
taking power away from the GM, it's kind of not going to help you out with landing a
So, what a lot of people in the media community were going, well, Matt Ryan had this, so that there's no comp kits. Well, I sent one writer here. I'll tell you who it was, Courtney Cronin, because she had stuff, and I said, Courtney, might not be the case. And I got and so I told her why, and she sent back. She goes, wow. She goes, you might have something there. And I said, I know I have something there. I know how the process works. So, it's. And then there was another writer, well-known writer, that I had a text, and he's positive they're not getting anything. And I said, I don't think I'd go to a casino and bet on that, or call a sports book or whatever. I said it's very vague. Now, granted, he might not have control of the roster, and if that's the case, Bears aren't getting anything.
Yeah.
But if he didn't have control of the roster, the Bears could have blocked the move, because in essence it was a lateral move. But then would, and Courtney had this point on Twitter. She said, would Ryan Poles do a dirty towards his best friend? And I agree with that. That was a strong point, a valid point that she made. But it's really, how good is this job? How much power does he have to be an actual GM?
And with Ian, he's already turned down a GM job in the past. It's not like this is a guy begging to get hired as a
Awful
GM.
franchise, though, and that
Yeah,
franchise still doesn't have a coach because of that same reason.
exactly. And he's a guy who he's been waiting, like J2K just said. He's been waiting 3 years for a GM job. He's a guy who, if he didn't get this job, he would have been, in my opinion, the front runner for every GM opening until he did end up getting a job. So
Right.
why make a lateral move if you don't have any control over the roster?
Well,
And pair that with
and I agree with you, and we're going to find out, and people think that, well, they're going to let it out. They might not let it out. They don't have to let it out. Poles could wait until the combine, and when he has his general manager presser at the combine, somebody could bring it up. He goes, "Yeah, we got the picks."
Yep. And that's why until I hear it from Ryan Poles or an NFL official, I'm not giving up on it, because
right,
there's
and
too much to this.
Right, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. I've seen, I can give you an example, some of the examples of how these go on in negotiations. One was with, and this goes back to when we hired Lovey, and before we got into negotiations with Lovey and even heavy interviews with Lovey, we were in heavy negotiations with Nick Saban. And
man, I wanted Nick Saban too back then. I got to tell you,
pretty much a deal was done, except for one thing: control the roster. Jerry wasn't about to give it up, and Saban had been a friend of Jerry's going back. They started out in coaching together at Syracuse.
Yeah,
when they both got out of college, and they've been long friends. But Jerry wasn't giving it up because that's what made Jerry the GM. And
yeah, if you don't have control of the roster, you're not really considered a GM, in my opinion.
Right. You know what you are? You're a vice president of player personnel with a fancy title and a lot more money.
And when you pair that comment right there with what Matt Ryan and Arthur Blank echoed in their press conferences, they said it's gonna be exactly the same role as the Atlanta Falcons GM had before. The Falcons GM before had control of the roster, and back in 2021, when they hired a guy from the Saints, it ended up hitting the Rooney Rule, and the Saints got the third round picks for it. So if it's the exact same job that it was in 2021, why would they get picks then and us not get picks now? Until I hear it from the NFL, I'm not letting that
Right.
one go.
Either the league or Ryan Poles. And like I said, Ryan could be very vague about it and say, I don't need to tell anybody. He probably already knows. I mean, because he knows so, but it's not something he has to go out and broadcast, and it's, I know the fans want it because they want to know, because they like playing armchair GM. Yeah. But you know what? It's really not that important. All they know is comp picks can be traded now where they didn't used to be able to be traded. So it gives you something to work with as far as negotiating trades during the draft. So,
and third round picks are valuable to the people who.
Oh yeah,
I know
they're really like fourth round picks. They're at the bottom of the.
Yeah. But what did we get Joe Tooney for last year?
A fourth
round pick. So those are picks that can end up being very valuable. And I haven't heard the problem for me is too many people out there that believe they know the answer just because of one report that's going on. And the way they're talking on Twitter, they're saying anyone who's countering the argument or providing facts to it, they're saying, you're wrong. We're not getting the picks. We're not getting the picks. And I just wish the media would be a little bit more responsible with this and get an actual answer. I was involved in
one exchange and Tom Pelissero is a friend of mine. We
He's the one guy. I almost put it to rest today when Tom Pelissero said it. I was like, maybe we're not getting the picks.
Well, I went back and forth. They go, not so fast. Technically, a week ago, yesterday morning, before they negotiated a contract, he was right. What's in the final contract?
And that's the point Greg's making here. Anyone who's joining late or just got here, what the decision on if or not we will get the comp picks is based on the wording in Ian Cunningham's contract. And the report that everyone's going off of on Twitter from the CBS guy, Jonathan Jones, that came out on January 10th.
Right.
The contract for Ian Cunningham wasn't even being discussed at that point. He didn't sign it until yesterday. Yeah, last night or today, one of those times. So people who said, we've known for weeks now the Bears aren't getting comp picks.
That's totally false.
Yes.
Unequivocally false. Now, technically, it was right when Jonathan wrote it because Matt Ryan was given the primary football executive role, which I said, again, is very vague. Okay, the main source of power, the main clause that makes a GM is control of the roster.
Mm-hmm. And I think there was a similar. Well, go ahead.
Now, their coach even mentioned something. We're not even going to talk about the 53, meaning control of the 53, until after we got the GM. So basically, he was saying that was a negotiated item.
Yep. That's something. And there was a similar situation last year. I don't remember the exact title of the guy the Titans hired, but when he was hired, similarly to Matt Ryan, he was the head football guy. But when they hired a GM, he handed that head football title over to the GM in his contract.
Borgonzi didn't. In fact, it was part of the conversation I had with Courtney. Borgonzi didn't have it at first, but got it.
Okay. He got that roster control. And if Ian Cunningham has the roster control, he is the primary football executive.
Now, if he gets it, if he gets it a year from now, you're SOL.
That's a different story, yeah.
Yeah. But, he's got to have it now when the contract is signed. And again, what happens with these contracts, because I've signed a number of them, you sign the contract, they get sent into the league. The team president signs the contract. Then it gets sent into the league. It gets reviewed by the management council. and the commissioner puts his autograph on it, and then you get a copy back. It's the management council in situations like this when you're dealing with comp picks. They're going to determine if there's comp picks given. And how about that? I didn't want to bring this up, but really it should be a part of the discussion. You're talking about the whole thing was brought up so that minority people working in football, it doesn't necessarily have to be an African American, because Robert Saleh, who is a Muslim, and San Francisco is going to get picks for him. It's a minority. It's strictly a minority. But this is a case where a minority goes from an assistant GM to a GM. He's getting a, quote, better job. Well, he doesn't have a better job unless he's got control of the roster, number one. But number two is that don't start playing games with this.
Yeah, and that's my biggest thing. If you start this loophole up, suddenly they're making a mockery of the whole thing. The whole thing is to promote and bring up more minority candidates to GM and head coaching roles in the NFL. The Bears followed this one by the book. Ian Cunningham has a ton of experience. He's worked side by side with Ryan Poles to rebuild this roster. He's had a ton of GM interviews, and he finally gets hired and takes a job. And some people in the media out there are trying to push this loophole. Maybe it's coming from the NFL. Maybe the NFL did see Matt Ryan as the guy who was going to make the football decisions. But when Matt Ryan himself says he's not, and Ian Cunningham takes the job, there's just too much to this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It just, there's a little bit more to it than what meets the eye right now. Just sit back, relax, and we'll find out. And hey, I could be 100% wrong. I know that. But so could a bunch of people in the media that are putting out something because they don't know exactly how the process works.
And that's where it's getting confusing for fans, because these media people are making it seem like it's 100% certain the Bears aren't getting their picks. And then you got all these fans and people, we're not getting the picks. We've known for this long we're not getting the picks. There are no picks. And that is simply not true at this point. So until we hear an official word, I'm going to keep ringing that bell.
And I'm going to go back to what I kept saying. It's what's in the contract, and
right now nobody's seen the contract.
Yeah, and yesterday, or you can go back to say Wednesday morning, Matt Ryan had that control. Does he still have that control right now?
Yep, 100%.
And we'll find out. And it's a negotiated clause.
And it depends on what is actually written in Ian Cunningham's contract. If you haven't seen Ian Cunningham's contract, please stop acting like you know, guys. We'll find out. This could honestly, and Greg said it a few minutes ago if you missed it, but this is something that could drag out. People could just be under the assumption that we don't have the picks.
And then the comp picks come out. The comp picks come out in March, and everybody, there's all of a sudden an extra third-round pick there.
Yep, and then in March, when either Ryan Poles has a presser or when the comp picks actually come out in March, we got that third-round pick set in there. There's going to be a lot of people that look really stupid right now. So
yeah, I'm going to leave it alone, and then what happens, because you know what, it's something none of us have control about. Nobody in the media has control over, and I know for a fact that the people who actually make the decision are in the league office when the contract gets reviewed.
Yep. So this is one. I still have faith. I have hope that the Bears will get these third-round picks. I don't see any legit reasoning why we wouldn't. If we don't get the picks, to me, it feels like they're making a mockery of the entire process, and there's going to be teams appointing new football terms and changing up the process.
Well, here's one thing I wanted to bring up, Swifty, too. There are people, I've gotten tweets from people in Atlanta. We're not giving up the picks. And I just heard them, you don't give up anything. These are bonus picks.
I've heard that too from people. They're saying this is the Falcons not wanting to give up the picks. And I'm like, look, if you don't even know where the picks come from, please don't try to tell me about the picks because I've spent hours and hours
Oh
and
my God!
hours
It's
researching this.
the people that think that these are picks that come from Atlanta, that Atlanta's got to give up a third this year and a third next year, are absolutely nuts. These
Yep.
picks come from the league. They are extra
They're
picks.
awarded. They're awarded as
Right.
part
And
of
they
the
get
winning
tagged
process.
and they
Yep.
get put on the end of the third round.
Yep. That's the most irritating part to me when people tell me the Falcons didn't want to give up the picks. And I'm like, guys, if you don't even know that the picks come from the NFL, please don't try to tell me that we're not getting the picks because you clearly have no idea what you're talking about. But like Greg said, the Falcons do not give up any picks. If anyone out there doesn't understand that, they are awarded. But that's the final word on this, guys. We will move on and talk a
I
little bit
think
about the
no, we
Senior
got to move
Bowl.
to the other thing where there's a lot of BS.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is Indiana.
Oh
Northwest
man, the
Indiana.
Indiana Stadium talk. Okay, okay.
Okay,
Let's go.
where
Let's move into that.
okay, now I get a bunch of stuff saying the league's not going to allow that to happen, and I laugh at it. Of course, they're going to allow it to happen. It's no different than the New York Giants building Giants Stadium in 1976 and moving across, the river, the Hudson River, over to 7.5 miles from Midtown. I worked there for almost 18 years, 17 and a half years, so I know the place well. No different than the Jets then picking up their offices from Hempstead, Long Island, over to Giant Stadium. No different than Kansas City a couple of weeks ago deciding, you know what, we're going across the border into Kansas. Now, here's what's funny. People are saying, well, they're going into Kansas. You know what the border is in Kansas between Kansas City, Missouri and Kansas City, Kansas? A street called State Line Road that runs through the middle of downtown. I mean, literally. I mean, one part of downtown is Kansas City, Missouri. The other part of downtown is Kansas City, Kansas. And a lot of the coaches and players actually live in Kansas.
Yeah, and that's the biggest part of today's social media society. There's so much misinformation and people talking like they know what they're talking about and have no idea what they're talking about. When it
Oh
comes to
God,
the
that's crazy.
stadium, I've always maintained the same thought that I believe eventually we will end up in Arlington Heights. But with Indiana, they're moving. Indiana's moving on some things, and I do think
Indiana has done 50. Indiana has done more in 3 weeks than the state of Illinois has done in 3 years.
Yep. And that's simply a fact. Illinois or Indiana is making moves to try to get the Bears there. And a couple things I've discussed it before, but they would not be the Indiana Bears, and they're still basically going to be in the Chicagoland area, just right across the border in Indiana.
Right.
I
Actually,
think
it's closer to downtown than Arlington Heights is.
and there's a point that a lot of people don't understand as well. It's actually closer to downtown than Arlington Heights. But I believe those two are going to be the front runners for the new stadium. Right now, I think they're using it as a negotiation tactic. They want to build in
I
Arlington Heights.
believe that. I believe that at first, Whitby, until Indiana came up with, here's what we're going to do for you.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get the land. We're going to build the stadium. You're going to lease the stadium back to us. And with your payments on the lease, you will own the stadium at the end of the lease. That is like the sweetheart deal of sweetheart deals. The Bears were going to spend well over $2 billion to pay for a stadium. Here, now they don't have to pay a penny. They got to pay rent. And they'll still have control over it.
Yeah, and that's where it gets kind of real here. I've always thought it was for negotiation since they've purchased that Arlington Heights property. But when you get a deal like that, I think that they'll give Illinois some time to potentially match or come up with a better offer. But if they keep their feet in the sand and don't get anything done, I think this is a real possibility now. So that is something to watch going forward.
Here's the problem with Illinois is that Illinois thought they could mess around with this. And they've been stalling, and they're going to try to squeeze. And now the Bears can do the squeezing. And they're not going to wait. The Bears
They want
have
to
the
get this
power.
done.
Yeah, the Bears have the power to say, you get a deal done in 3 weeks or we're out of here. And, and Fat Boy Pritzker, he's going to be really. How about this? How about if he's governor and all these other people are state legislatures and town councilmen and everything else, if it's on their ass for the Bears moving across the border to Indiana, not one of them will ever get reelected.
Yeah, and that could very well happen if you lose the Chicago Bears in the state of Illinois. That's going to be some trouble there. But I want to get over and start talking about the Senior Bowl. What I did see this week, we're already getting some questions in chat. I'll go ahead and respond to that one first. Let me see where I can find it. Have you watched anything on Missouri edge rusher Zion Young? He's been a
Yeah.
standout player this week, and I think he fits Dennis Allen's system like a glove. He's one of those guys who's very stout and powerful. He can shed blocks and defend the run, but he showed off some pass rush chops this week as well.
Well, I'll give you another one too. Jackus from Illinois.
Oh, Gabe Jackus. He was on my sleeper list I was going to ask you about later, but
another one. That boy ain't sleeping, Swifty.
Man, he was a guy who he played out of position. He played more linebacker at Illinois, but he's shown that he is a real edge rusher with potential. He had one rep where he beat the offensive lineman this week, made him look silly, and then just kind of stared him down and kind of put his shoulders up and stared him down. I was like, that is a bad man, and whoever drafts him is going to be happy.
Well, I know he caught my buddy Baldy's eye, because Baldy already did a little clip on him and talked about him. And Baldy and I have been friends going back 20 years now. Real good guy, and actually a very good evaluator himself. But I like the guy. Now, is he a first? I think he's a borderline and could be one of these guys that if he puts up really good numbers at the combine, or better numbers than anticipated at the combine, and he's had a solid week. Now, some people put too much stock into the bowl games, the Senior Bowl, the East-West game, or whatever, and that's not really what happens. The rule of thumb in personnel departments is don't let an all-star game hurt a guy, because what's more important is 12 games or 13 games. They're in the playoffs, maybe 14 or 15 during the season, not an all-star game.
Yes.
But so you don't want the all-star game to hurt them. There's some guys that haven't played football since November. Their last game was Thanksgiving weekend, and they haven't played since, and then they're thrown into an all-star situation. There's other guys who, played in bowl games or were in the playoffs or whatever. But you want an all-star game to help a guy. You don't want an all-star game to hurt a guy. At the same time, you don't want to let an all-star game help him so much that you forget about the damn tape that he had during the year, because that's how you get burned.
You want it to confirm what you see on tape. And then when you go back on tape and watch it, it's still an opportunity, though, for these guys to go up against some of the best competition in the league. And for Jackus, in particular, he's a guy who he was a big-time performer at Illinois. In their 6 games versus top 25 teams, he had 5.5 sacks. But he played out of position. Looking in the NFL, it's looking like he's going to move strictly to an edge rusher.
Oh, yeah. He played on his feet most of the time at Illinois, dropped into coverage a lot. And that's the case with a lot of these edges in college. They're not always rushing the passer. They're dropping into coverage on pass down sometimes. So you got to be careful when you look strictly at the numbers.
Yep.
Now, you can take a guy like the Miami guy, Dane. He was never dropping into coverage. He was rushing the passer all the time.
He had his ears pinned back.
Right. And the same with Messidor. It really depends on what the scheme is that the school's using. So But I think Gabe Jackas is an interesting guy. And I'll tell you, the guy that kind of jumped out, and I hadn't done him in a long time, I mean, probably going back to September, was the Texas Tech tackle.
Oh, okay. Lee Hunter.
Right. So, I mean, he's jumping out at the Senior Bowl in the one-on-ones. Now, you can't put a lot of stock into the one-on-ones, but you can see some special qualities. Excuse me. So I purposely then put on some tape. And his tape during the year, he's got flash plays, but it's not as good as what you saw at the Senior Bowl.
I do think one of the things to take into account there, when I've watched Lee Hunter's tape, he doesn't have many opportunities for one-on-ones when you're looking at his tape, and that's why.
Well, you're right. You're absolutely right, and part of it's the style defense they play, but he looked more athletic, more explosive at the Senior Bowl than he does on tape at Texas Tech.
And now, one thing I saw, I don't know if he was just trying to impress and trying to go all out there at the Senior Bowl, but I saw a little bit of that too. And it got that first day, he dominated Iowa interior lineman Bo Stevens, made him look bad. Day 2 and 3, Lee Hunter was wrecking a lot of people. But when he went against Bo Stevens put him in the turf 3 times in the last 2 days.
Well, that's that's showing you the competitive nature of Bo Stevens.
Yeah, and it was also, but it caught out something off guard there. He was able to snatch and throw him to the turf, and it showed me that it looked like Lee Hunter wasn't using leverage as well as he could, and he was just kind of trying to go out there and explode into the backfield and get by guys, where he wasn't using the leverage and his footwork like he should.
Right.
That could get him to some trouble in the NFL. But
well, that's where coaching comes in and discipline comes in.
Now, day 1, when I was watching the tape of Lee Hunter and he was dominating those defensive or offensive linemen, I thought he was going to be a guy who raised his stock into being a first round pick.
For a second, I got a cough.
But there's a few things that I saw the last couple of days, especially with his advanced age as well. I think he's a guy who could fall to the second round. Now, the one guy I think will not fall to the second round, who I thought was dominant all week and potentially my standout player of the entire process, is Caleb Banks from Florida, a guy who missed most of the season. So you don't have a lot of tape from 2025 to watch. You got to go all the way back to 2024 to see him. But I thought
tell you exactly how many plays you have because I got it here. I just got it.
He's only got a couple.
I got to just put his name in on the thing. So you got to put Caleb Banks.
He impressed me a lot, though. For a guy his size, he can move, man. He can really move. Ton of power, too.
Okay, how many snaps do you think he had all year?
Under 50?
No, he had 96.
96.
Did not play the first 2 games. Had 29 snaps week 3 against LSU. Did not play again until week 13 against Tennessee. Had 37 snaps. And then against Florida State the following week, he had 30 snaps. That's all he played all year.
Yeah. And he does look fully healthy. He does look dominant. I do think he's a guy that's going to go in the first round. So that's one thing.
The only thing is that, you know, I remember doing him in the summer doing last year's tape. And last year's tape, now, you know, they had some problems last year with their whole team. But last year's tape wasn't close to what you saw this week either. So that's where you got to be careful. So you can see what the potential is, and you can see some of the dominating ability in one-on-ones. Excuse me, I got a lung problem and it's bothering me.
You're right.
But he was throwing guys like they were just ragdolls. But at the same time, when you match it up to tape, they don't correlate. So, you know, that's a guy you got to work out privately. You got to spend a lot of time with. You got to find out. You got to really talk to the coaches at Florida. Find out as much as you can about them, because you don't want to put all your grade strictly on some reps at the Senior Bowl.
Yep. And
And I'm not trying to talk the guy down. All I'm trying to do is be realistic on what happens in the process like that. Because guys like that jump out can sometimes bite you in the ass after you draft them.
yeah, and this is someone brought up a guy that I did want to talk about. His question here is, could age play a factor when you're talking about guys like Akeem Mesidor or Derek Moore? And Derek Moore is one of my players that just like Zion Young out of Missouri, I think Derek Moore is a guy who fits Dennis Allen's scheme, but his pass rush ability looks awesome. He is probably, if there's one guy that I think can actually show off and have a huge game on Saturday, because I know some guys end up after they have big weeks of practice, they don't play in the game. I expect Derek Moore to play, and I expect him to have a big game.
I'll tell you what, teams don't put a lot of stock into the game. They put all
Yeah,
the stock into what they saw during the week.
same. I mean, all those one-on-one matchups. But there are guys that can turn it on during the game, and he's one of those guys that I expect to have a big game. I do think he fits Derek or Dennis Allen's defense, and depending on if he's a guy we can get in the second round, I'm all for going defensive tackle in the first and defensive end in the second. Do you think the Bears could potentially double dip on the defensive line this year? I think it's a perfect year to do that. The Senior Bowl has shown it, and I saw it before that. But this year's strength in the draft to me is defensive line.
Well, right now they're picking 25 in the first, and so then when you switch that over to the second, now
It's 57.
there could be some ties. Yeah, theoretically at 57, but there could be ties with the record. They're going to be at the bottom at 25. They could be up actually one slot in the second round. We'll find that out later when they put out the exact draft order. But it'll be in that 57, 56 area, or not 57, yeah, 57, 56 area in the second round. Unless, of course, they move, and the only way they're going to move is that they got extra picks to be able to move up.
Need those top picks.
That's the area, where they got Sanders last year,
Yep.
and same with Ozzie in those late second round picks. So if you do your homework, you
Sure.
can get good guys. Now, going back to what you said, do you think they could double dip? Yeah, it's possible, but it all depends what they do on March 1st when the free agency starts.
Yeah,
Because
and I think that's what a lot of people. I saw a couple of wide receivers that I really liked at this draft, and I remember tweeting about him. One of the guys is, oh, what was his name? Kevin Coleman Jr. He
right,
is small, takes the lid off of defense. He can take the top off of defense,
what were
and
his
he can
measurables?
return punt.
Do you know
Say it again.
his measurables? What was his height and weight?
I can find it out real quick. He is. It looks like 5'11", 174. But the
Okay.
thing that fans would say, I got this from a lot of people. No way are we drafting a wide receiver. We
Well,
need
if
this,
they
this,
trade
this, and this.
DJ, if they trade DJ, you're
That really
drafting a
opens
wide
up the need.
receiver.
We'll need a wide receiver if we trade DJ. Yep. And I do think this draft is good for when you're talking about that fourth, fifth round. There are some guys there that I think could help out this team. Um, Kevin Coleman Jr. is one of those guys. He's a guy who can be a kick returner, punt returner, and he can take the top off of defense, something that we don't currently have in Ben Johnson's offense. There are some guys with speed, but no real stretch the field type of guys on this offense. And I think we need one of those
Well,
guys.
Luther can do it. He hasn't been used that way yet.
Yeah, he can do
Now,
it.
the strength of the receiver position, to use Daniel Jeremiah as a gauge, I think in his original top 50, he's got 10 wide receivers.
Yeah. I like
Which
that. And to me, the strength is still on the defensive line, but there is some talent at wide receiver. One of the guys who really stood out, and I think you could even see him being talked about in the first round conversation soon is Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame. He looked better than some of those guys they have projected to go in round one to me. He can stretch the field, he goes up, makes plays, and he has incredible hands.
Well, Malachi almost came out. First of all, his agent's a very close friend of mine. I do work with
Mm,
him,
okay, okay.
and what happened last year is he was right on the verge of entering the draft, and Notre Dame came up with a big NIL number. I know the
Mm,
exact number. I'm not going to give it, but it was big.
yeah.
Put it this way: it had 6 zeros on it. After so he decided, the agent said, because he called me and we talked about it, and he said, he goes, I'm going to tell him to go to Notre Dame. That's it's $1 million, better than $1 million in his pocket right now. And I said, yeah. Now I think that you're playing with a redshirt freshman who did not play at all in 24. And I think and they didn't practice together in the spring because Carr was out in the spring. That or he was out. He wasn't 100% in the spring. He did practice, but he wasn't 100%. I don't think the connection was built until around mid-season.
Mm,
But
yeah.
from the middle of the season on, Malachi Fields was outstanding. And the one thing that surprised me, and I didn't, because I did a lot of tape on him from the 24 season when he was at Virginia. I thought he was like a 4.52, 4.53 guy. And then all of a sudden, the last few games this year on the Notre Dame schedule, you see this guy stretching the field, and you go, wait a minute, he's a little bit faster than that. And from what I understand, he looked pretty damn fast down in Mobile. So he's going to
He's
be a
looked
guy.
fast.
Yeah,
He was a
he's
guy. I
going to
mean,
be a guy that if all of a sudden, he runs 4.45, 4.47, that's going to, and with his size, that's going to be a guy that's going to really jump up.
the first couple of days in the wide receiver corner drills and in team drills, he was used primarily to stretch the field. He was the guy they were throwing deep to. He was the guy the quarterbacks trusted. Not only did he have the speed and he was beating guys off the line, but he also has the size to go up and make plays on the
Yeah,
ball. But then
he's got big hands. He's got length, big hands, and he's a big dude.
he really showed out when he started all of a sudden doing it, making the shorter gains as well. He was doing the comeback routes and the curl routes, and he was killing cornerbacks because they were respecting his deep speed so much. And then he was getting a ton of separation when he would stop and turn around. And he's a guy, he just really impressed me. My biggest thing I wanted to scout was defensive line. But Malachi Fields is a guy who really stood out to me
The other
and
guy that
he
stood
made
out to
himself some
me
money.
just a little is the Georgia State kid.
Oh yeah. He's
And I
been
had
good as well.
did him twice. I did him during the summer, and I did him during the fall for agents. And this is a guy that against G5 competition dominated, totally
Yep.
dominated. But so the big question was he gonna? You still don't. He's a strider, so you didn't know exactly how fast he was. Some of those striders are actually time faster than they look because they're not quick steppers. So you don't know his exact speed. We'll find that out at the combine. And the other question was, well, he's doing it against G5. Will he be able to do it against P4 and then NFL guys? So, but he was looking great down in Mobile, and he's another big receiver. Now he's not as heavy as Malachi, but he's long and he's tall.
And I mean, someone mentioned it. Ted Hurst is the guy's name. I wanted to just throw that out there real quick for anyone who didn't know who we were talking about. But I did. There was a comment I had to address. Someone says at 25, I don't think there's anything better than what the Bears have on this roster as far as edge players. I completely disagree with this. We need a third edge. Are you going to find? We found Austin Booker in the fifth round. I believe this year's class of edge rushers is really talented. It's a D line
And
heavy
they're getting,
class.
and don't forget, you got your guy now coming back, and probably going to be a lot lighter next year, Shamar Turner.
Shamar Turner, yep. I do like Shamar Turner. I think with Shamar Turner, with Austin Booker, with Montez Sweat, and then if we add a couple more
Yeah,
guys on the D
really, you
line in
got to
the
add
draft,
one more.
got to add one more. I think we might defensive tackle might be a bigger need, but as you've said, and as I know for sure, this depends on what happens in free agency. We could always address that during the free agent period as well.
Right. And then who are they going to lose? See, that it's not only who you gain, who are they going to lose? What if
Yeah,
they lose four safeties?
four safeties, man, and that's I, I think I think in all seriousness, Kevin Byard will be back. I think Ryan Poles has went out of his way to say it that he wants to bring Kevin Byard back. And with how Kevin Byard played this year, he was the guy who was named our defensive MVP. He had an all pro season, all those interceptions. He's a guy who I think he's back. The real question is, do they try to bring Jaquan Brisker back, or is he going to price himself out? And then we might have to turn to the draft to get a safety.
Yeah, well, I think in my gut feeling in Briskers are going to say go test the market,
Mhm.
but give us an opportunity to match, which may or may not happen. And then he'll find out. He may think he's worth X amount of dollars, and then when he gets into the marketplace, because safeties don't necessarily draw a lot of money in free agency, they
Yeah,
rarely do.
and that's where I think we have a chance to bring Brisker back, but it's really going to depend on what his market is. My man, safety is a position I will be keeping my eye on, though. I know a lot of people like the Oregon safety, Dylan, and the other guy I really like though is AJ Halsey out of LSU. But if you can bring Brisker and Byard back, I think that's where I'd start. J2K asked if there were any linebackers at the Senior Bowl that caught our eye. Obviously, Jacob Rodriguez, the Texas Tech guy, he
Oh,
had three
he's really
forced
good
fumbles
player.
in one practice, three forced fumbles. He had multiple
Really,
interceptions,
really good football player.
and what he really showed off to me that I didn't know if he could do was covering running backs out of the backfield one on one. He was shutting guys down and breaking up passes.
Have you done any tape on him?
Yeah, oh yeah, I've been watching Texas because I like Romello Height, I like Lee Hunter. Obviously, I'm a fan of David Bailey, and honestly, when you're watching Texas Tech tape, it's hard to not notice Jacob Rodriguez.
His tape is so damn impressive.
He's a guy who in mock drafts he's going in the third round. I think there's a legit chance. I think he's a day two lock no matter what. But he could end up playing his way into the first round. He's that good.
Well, what his speed is,
Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
linebackers are undervalued a a little bit in today's NFL too.
Right, and unless they really got good measurables, and
Mhm.
he might be a high 4.6, low 4.7 guy, but he's a real instinctive football player.
If
So
that happens, he's a steal on day two.
oh yeah, for sure.
Now J2K did comment on the Oregon safety Thieneman. Byman. He's a guy whose tape I have not watched a ton of, but he's being mocked to the Bears in the late first
Yeah,
round right now.
DJ put him to the Bears, and he's a good player. I've done him. I got to go back and look exactly what I wrote. I know I did like him. There's the safety from Texas who's coming out. I think coming out a year old. He's damn good too.
Oh, let me see. And then a couple.
Safeties you can always get on day three, and they're good players because
Yeah,
it's not a premium position when it comes to the draft.
true. And it's always undervalued as well. But I do believe a really good safety can change your defense. When you look at a guy like what Nick Emanowari did for the Seahawks
Right.
defense,
Well, I was just going to bring him up, Swifty, because that's a guy that theoretically had first round grades, but
and we
because he's
both
a
talked about
safety,
him last
yeah,
year.
because he was a safety, he went the second round.
Yeah, and he's a guy who he's completely changed that Seahawks defense, and he's shut guys down. He's been awesome against the run. He plays tight ends. He gets running backs out of the backfield. So I really do. I'm a huge fan of him. If we could find a guy like that in the draft, I'm all for it. But I am a fan of Jaquan Briskers. I'm hoping we can find some kind of way to work out a team friendly deal, bring back Brisker and Byard, and our whole secondary almost at that point would be back. Although I do not believe we're going to be able to afford Nashawn Wright.
Yeah, maybe right. And, I look at it this way: if some of these guys draw some big contracts, and Bears don't have a lot of money to go out and get outside guys, could bring in some comp picks next year,
Oh
which
yeah,
isn't a
true.
bad thing.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. We could definitely you could see that happening if we're not big spenders in free agency. I do think we're going to open up a lot of cap space by restructuring some deals
Oh
if they
yeah,
do
that's
trade.
going to happen, but it's how
Yeah.
is it going to be to retain some guys, get some guys, or a combination of both?
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. Do they like the free agency, the guys in free agency better than they like the guys that are on their own roster? We heard what Ryan Poles said about Kevin Byard, and I believe he's going to be a priority. That's the one guy that I do see coming back. He's the leader of our secondary, but um, we'll see what happens with that.
The other
Another
thing,
couple
the
of
same
questions.
thing is that when he was talking about Byard and then he went to Brisker, he was kind of like this on Brisker.
Yeah, he didn't really mention anything about I definitely bring Brisker back, so that's
Right.
That's huge. A couple people have asked about the Ohio State defensive tackle, Caden McDonald,
Really
and if
like.
you think, do you think he will be on the board when the Bears pick down at 25?
Uh, well, if you look at mocks, yes, but they don't. Early mocks like this mean nothing. Uh, Interviews, combine workout, a lot of that stuff's going to come into play. The private workouts that comes into play, and defensive linemen are, you want to find out what's going on in his head. Defensive linemen usually got a little shit in their neck, so you gotta deal with some craziness. That coming in, you're going to deal. You're going to take a defensive lineman who's half nuts before you're going to take an offensive lineman who's half nuts.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those guys they can be crazy. You just want them to go out there and try to kill the quarterback. So
Right.
yeah, always. I don't mind the crazy defensive lineman. Caleb Banks has looked that way at times at the Senior Bowl. Derek Moore, another guy, has caught my eye. There's been just a lot of standouts on the defensive line. J2K had a great question about one of them. Let me find this one real quick. He did mention Bud Clark, an underrated safety that has really showed up. He had a play where he was defending the receiver with one hand. He tips the ball and then he intercepted it with his other hand with one hand. That was one that I really liked. And here's the guy that J2K was talking about. He was on my standout players on day 2. Missouri defensive tackle Chris McClellan. He said he loafs a lot on tape, but he played well at the Senior Bowl. How much weight do you put on the tape versus showing up at the Senior Bowl?
Oh, you're putting 75, 80% on the tape.
Hmm.
Now,
Well, that
what you do when a guy jumps out at the Senior Bowl like that, you're going to go back. And you've already. Well, what happens? The preliminary board will be put together within the next couple of weeks because we're getting into February before they go
it's
in
coming
for
fast.
the combine. So but that's going to be 90% of that's going to be what they did in the fall. And then you're going to bring in the All-Star game and you're going to say, yeah, but he did this at the All-Star game. So you go back and you start looking at the tape and you try, and part of that too is you interview the kid, you interview the coaches. Uh, what do the Missouri coaches have to say about the kid? Because you want to find out, is this kid got some dog to him, or is he going to be a fighter for you? And that's where you can't make mistakes. So you could go back and look at the defensive tackles that Poles drafted his first year. Those guys really didn't have great tape in college, but they had traits.
Yeah. And they didn't pan out very well. I mean, I still have some faith in Javon Dexter. I've seen a
Yeah,
lot of
Dexter's a lot better than people give him credit for. What he
I've seen a
doesn't do
lot
is
of
get
hate on
sacks.
Dexter in this chat. Yeah. Now, Dexter, he does have to work on his first step and getting off the line of scrimmage. But one thing about Dexter that I think a lot of people don't realize, he is younger than some of the people in this draft class. When you look at guys like Akeem Mesidor and Derek Moore, Javon Dexter's right there. He's only 24 years old. He has his best football is still in front of
How
him.
old's
Now,
Derek
I
Moore?
would
20,
like
going to be 25?
let me see when his birthday was. I just looked it up the other day. I was talking to someone about it. He is his birthday is October 5th. He's 20, so he turned 24 117 days ago. He'll be 25 this year. He's coming out. He was top 10 in the NFL in sacks for defensive tackles. Now, a lot of those sacks were longer developing plays, but I think if you put another beast next to him on the line that draws double teams, a guy like Caleb Banks or Lee Hunter or even Caden McDonald, if you have another guy like that on the line, I think Dexter's potential is there. I think he has the upside to be a lot better. But this year, Grady Jarrett's the guy who disappointed me. Grady Jarrett played hurt, and he didn't really show up most of the year.
But he came on the end of the year, and he played
Yeah.
good in the playoff games. Let me bring up one guy. I don't particularly like him that much, but that one chat we're in, those guys seem to love that Clemson kid.
Oh,
I
TJ
don't.
Parker?
Yeah, I don't see the Clemson DT as a real fit in a DA scheme.
No, he's defensive end.
No,
Talking
not
about Parker?
no, the defensive tackle front.
Oh,
They
the
got a
tackle.
tackle and an end, and
Yeah.
the tackle. I don't see it. He's a good player. I just don't see him as good a fit as the Ohio State kid.
Yeah. Peter Woods. I don't think he's going to be. He's a guy who's projected to go a lot higher. We'll see about him, but what I
Parker had a real good Senior Bowl week, and his Senior Bowl
Parker is
week was better than his tape at Clemson.
his week in the Senior Bowl was awesome. TJ Parker really stood out. He's violent. He burst off the line of scrimmage. He's strong in the run game, and he showed up in not only the one-on-ones, the team drills as well. TJ Parker is a guy that I like. I have to say I like that guy, but we'll see what happens with him. Shout out to my man Eric Harper for gifting 5 subs. And then I had a good question here about Kyler Gordon that I wanted to address. He said, "What do we think about Kyler Gordon? Are we going to put faith that he makes it more than 2 games without a hammy injury?" Listen, Kyler, his new contract doesn't kick in until next year. And when healthy, he's one of the best nickelbacks in the NFL. I do think we need to prepare just in case he gets hurt. But it's not like we're going to go out and draft a nickelback in round 2. I don't
He's
see
got
that
to
happening.
take really good care of himself in the off-season program and really work on the weaknesses in his body and shore those up so that the same stuff doesn't happen again.
And J2K followed it up with injuries to Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, and Terrell Smith, and us potentially losing Nashawn Wright. Do you think cornerback is possible with a high pick?
You're going to know where Smith is rehab wise before the draft. And Smith is a good player, and he fits DA's scheme really well.
And Zay Frazier does as well.
Yeah, but Zay is, to me, Zay Frazier's, he's an older guy too.
Wild card, yeah.
But he's a bonus guy because he had to sit all year. I think he was raw to begin with. He was a trade pick. If you get something out of him, it's all a bonus. I'm not expecting a lot. I'm hoping you get a lot, but I'm not expecting a lot.
100%. That's exactly how I feel. I think cornerback right now would be kind of a luxury move. It's one of those positions I could see just like last year with Zay Frazier. If there's a guy with traits that they like on day 3, in round 4, or even in round 4 or 5, somewhere around there, if there's a guy that Al Harris likes, and that's the biggest key for me, Al Harris coming back. If Al Harris has a guy he likes, you can pair him with Terrell Smith and Zay Frazier, and our cornerback room will have a lot of depth.
Thing is Swifty, is he, because of the rules they have, and he was on NFI all year, he didn't get to practice all year. He was in meetings, didn't get to practice. Now, could he have done some stuff indoors? Maybe. We don't know. But, he was around. He just didn't get any practice. And how much is that going to hurt him?
And the final question I'll ask you, Greg, before we're getting close to time here. What do you believe right now, before free agency, is the Bears' biggest need on this roster?
DT.
That's exactly where I'm at too. Defensive tackle. Now, I would say safety is up there because
Yeah.
all of our
Oh,
safeties are hitting
safety's
free
because it's
agency.
unanswered as far as who's being brought back.
But all they got to do is bring back Byard and Brisker, and then suddenly safety's not a need at all. So to me, a defensive
Well, the
tackle
other
and a
two,
different winger.
you're not going to lose the other two in free agency.
Yeah,
You're going to probably get
Jonathan
them back
Owens.
at minimum deals like they're on now.
Yep, same thing. Yeah, and if they're and especially if they think they can get more playing time here, a guy like Elijah Hicks or Jonathan Owens, who we saw that his wife Simone Biles had a lot of fun being a Bears fan. So I think he's a guy who could be back on a relatively cheap deal. And then we look to add a stud defensive tackle in the first round of the draft, and we're cooking with grease.
Well, we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. I never want to. I know how the process works, and I don't want to overstep the process. So it's take one thing at a time, and let's get through, see what happens in free agency, and really the important thing in free agency the first couple days. So that's
Yep.
going to be March 11th and March 12th. We're talking 5 weeks from now, 5.5 weeks from now.
It's coming up fast. We got the Senior Bowl is already here. The game will be tomorrow. This off season is coming at us faster than normal, thanks to this team making it to the second round of the playoffs, and that's
Yep.
something that I'm grateful for, man.
No, and yeah, and pretty soon we're going to be watching the combine. I keep forgetting that all the combine drills are at night now, not in the morning. So they don't start until about 3 in the afternoon. Our
I
time.
will be at the NFL Combine as well.
Oh, you're going there?
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
go for the interviews?
yeah. It's fun. I didn't do as many interviews, but we'll see. Last year, I just kind of went and watched the drills and then went back to the hotel. It's a little bit harder to get the interviews at the combine than it is at the Senior Bowl. You got to know somebody in there.
Yeah, it's real. Well, you can talk to them though when they're doing their presser.
Yeah.
You can be there and ask questions. You don't have to have a. I don't think you have to have a credential to be there to ask questions.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be a fun time. The off season is coming quick. Everyone, I appreciate you guys watching. If you want to see more Senior Bowl coverage, I do have my day 3 Senior Bowl standouts going live on Swift Scouting Network now. Hang out in the chat if you want to head over there.
When did you come back from there? Last night?
Well, I just did the virtual this year.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yep, yep. Everyone, I appreciate everybody who watches. Bear down, and we'll see you guys later.
See you later. Thanks all.